soon. I've got 3 weeks till the 1st of June. No idea where I'm gonna find a saloon. Credit's trash, the bill collector's suing. Feels like I'm living in a country song. Everything in life going wrong. Been down and out for far too long. Feels like I'm living in a country song. Looks like every door's closing in my face. I'm a one-legged man in a butt-kicking race. Lord, I could use some grace. It's gonna take a miracle to find a place. It's gonna take a miracle to find a place. Feels like I'm living in a country song, with everything in life going wrong. Been down and out for far too long. Feels like I'm living in a country song. I know when destruction comes our way, it's clearing out what doesn't need to stay. There's always gonna be a delay between when we receive and when we pray. But the Lord, I just got to say, feels like I'm living in a country song, with everything in life going wrong. Been down and out for far too long. Feels like I'm living in a country song. Lord, if this is you preparing ground, please show me there's hope to be found. I'm praying someday my life will rebound. Until then, keep me safe and sound. Feels like I'm living in a country song, with everything in life going wrong. Been down and out for far too long. Feels like I'm living in a country song. Oh, I'm living in a country song. Oh, I'm living in a country song.
Yes, sir, and ladies and gentlemen, it is true. I'm right now a little bit living in a country song. We are having a little bit of technical difficulties, but there we go. We are getting going. For reals, for reals. Man. The way this stream started off was a little bit rough, but it's all good. It's all good. We'll pick it up here just a minute. There we go. Popping into the art. We're going to pick up where we left off last week, working on our castle. I'm so glad to be with you tonight. So glad you're here with me. We're going to focus and concentrate on the castle. The background is still there, but we've got it turned off for the moment so we can really focus on the details. Really get this locked and loaded, so to speak. I'm going to zoom in too a little bit. Well, patience is a virtue, and as Magnum PI also said, it also creates muscle cramps. I have learned patience over the years. I am still not proficient at it. It is not the virtue that is my favorite, but nevertheless, you are correct. It is a virtue that is important and creates many great saints if you can get to the point where you actually have it. Me, I'm still working on it. Hey! Still working on it. Yes, Magnum PI. I loved that show when I was a kid. Man, I did. I watched it all the time. Which is funny, it wasn't really meant to be a kid's show, but couldn't have told me that. I doubt my mom would have really wanted me watching it necessarily if she'd have known. But, like with a lot of 80s kids, my parents weren't exactly paying a lot of attention to what we were doing. They were off doing their own thing. Generation X. The feral generation is what we should have been called. That's pretty much what we were. We raised ourselves for the most part. Adults were optional and kind of a nuisance when they did show up. They interfered with our plans, man. Ruined our fun. So, yeah, latchkey kids and all that. Learned early, don't wait for an adult. If you got a problem, bandage yourself up and take care of it yourself. Hey, Tom! Good to see you, my man. I hope things are going well for you today. At least as well as they can be, all considered the circumstances. Our life is going a little bit better. We are making progress on fronts. One giant at a time, as I like to say. I think one of the things that causes anxiety so much is that we look at the whole battlefield and we try to assess how we're going to conquer the whole battlefield. And that's a mistake, because that's what causes you anxiety. You aren't meant to tackle the whole battlefield at once. And if you try to pay attention to the entire battlefield all at the same time, you're going to lose the battle every single time because you're going to be distracted. The real lesson from David and Goliath is pick your target. Focus resolutely on one thing. Knock that out, and then you can take down the rest of the battlefield. One giant at a time. That's how the battle gets won. Yeah. On the phone it is hard to tag. But that was a lesson that took me a long time to learn. Just one giant at a time. You can't do more than that. And if you try, you're going to lose. And one of the places I actually learned that was from, I was writing a combat scene for a book called Tormented Love. And it's a mercenary, and he's taking his charge through the forest on their way to a mountain pass to get her to a kingdom where she's not being hunted down. And he ends up being surrounded by 5 huge guys, you know, and they're trying to take the young woman out from his charge. And I did a little research into how somebody in a combat situation would be best advised to handle that situation. And it was interesting to me. So, and one of the things they said was, you don't fight all 5 people at the same time. First of all, you work to create a bottleneck. See if you can get it to a situation where you're only handling 1 at a time. Then, second of all, if you can't do that, you look to flee. Don't fight, flee. And if you can't do that, then you look for whatever strategic advantage you can gain, but you only focus on 1 target at a time. And that is how you survive a combat situation like that. Which is a valuable lesson in life, as in everything. And yes, anytime I'm writing something I'm not familiar with, research is my first go-to. I try to find out how it would be done. Growing up in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s was the best. I think so. I think actually, you know, as much as people are down on us for being a bit standoffish and maybe not being as politically involved as everybody else seems to be, I think it's more because we didn't really feel like we had a part in society. Like we were just left to our own devices and nobody gave a crap what was happening to us. I mean, there were street gangs forming in my neighborhood, and my parents had no freaking clue, not the slightest, that this was all going down. And they were not around to ask for help, so we were handling this all on our own. And, there was one afternoon where these kids in the neighborhood came and they wanted to beat my little brother up. He was often the target of their animosity. The kid, I don't know how he managed it, but he could drive anybody to the point where they wanted to beat the tar out of him. And I was not going to let them do it on my territory. So here we were in the backyard, basically the kids are out front outside the gate just waiting for us to come out. Just waiting. And I've got no intention of doing that. And all we had to use to defend ourselves were pine cones. But what I knew is that those suckers can hurt if you pelt somebody with them. They're not going to do permanent damage, but they sure are going to sting like fire. And so that's what my brother and I told Kevin, that's my brother's name, I told him to gather up the pine cones. And we made giant piles of pine cones and we're pelting those kids with pine cones all afternoon to get them to go away and leave us the heck alone. And it eventually worked. But yeah, I mean, adults, there were no adults around. What are you talking about? They were too busy doing their own thing. We were the adults in our lives. It's a miracle we didn't end up dead or maimed. Good grief. Oh. I think that's one of the reasons why my generation, when we had kids of our own, we were tended to be far more protective of them, maybe overprotective. Because, our parents weren't involved, so I think a lot of us went the opposite direction. Now, I was too broke to be able to be overly involved in my son's life. I kind of had to do you're going to have to learn to handle yourself because I can't hold down a job and always be there for you too. I wish it had been different, but in some ways, but in other ways it was probably better for him. But yeah, he didn't quite get the latchkey treatment because we had him in after school care and stuff like that, but he did have to get himself off to school when he got to junior high. And I told him, if you're late, if you fail to show up, I'm going to find out and we are going to have a talk. I can't be here to get you there. You're going to have to do it. And so, yeah, he learned responsibility and a lot of other things very quickly because of that. And he's a really good, responsible young man. And in large part because he had to be responsible. He didn't have somebody hovering over him, fixing everything for him. I think there is something to be said for that. Yeah, you watch it on TV in your bedroom because you can see everything better. Would it help if I made this larger? Is this not like, I mean, I can, Let me know if it's not giving you good detail or something, because I can definitely zoom in and give you a better idea of what's going on the arts tablet, so to speak. I mean, these flags, if this is like been a deserted castle for a while, these flags probably have rips and tatters to them. And I should probably be representing that and thinking about that. Well, I'm glad it's better. No, my goal is to provide you guys as good an experience as I possibly can. And if you're not able to see what's going on, that's not a really good experience for anybody. Pretty wild, though, growing up in the 80s. Like I said, my parents had no idea what was going on with us. And if they did, they'd probably have had a heart attack at some of the stuff we were busy doing. But, you know, that's living and learning. Get that whole life experience thing going on there. And they talk about the feral parenting. It's like, what is it? Free range parenting? Yeah. Just let the kids out the backyard. That is what our parents did. That is the definition of what our parents did. So anybody from our parents' generation criticizing parents for doing that stuff, they need to look in the mirror because that's exactly how they raised us. It was free range parenting all the way. Full stop, man. Full stop. Oh, yeah. No worries. Jump into 2 yards premiere. That's cool. I'll give it a watch when I'm done with this. I love our community and the way we show up for each other. It's so awesome. I think it really is the best part of the interwebs. You gotta get some white spray paint for the Fesley Super Strat that RJ's Cave sent you. Yeah. At some point in time, I've got, Randy and I have got to get going on that, his guitars, fixing those up. Of course, in the middle of this move, it's kind of hard to, we wanted to have more done before Mia got back tomorrow, but that didn't end up panning out the way we expected it to. What with all the issues going on with the registration and everything else. I really do want to get those guitars done, though. Poor babies. Sitting there looking so forlorn. Like, why? Why won't you fix me? Oh, it's okay. We'll get to you, I promise. I'm in the middle of trying to figure out how we're going to swing getting a place to stay when we get to wherever we're going. I've got a potential thought on how we might work things out, but in fact, I woke up with a dream this morning that we were leasing to own a place, and that gave me an idea to see if the owner of one of the places I was interested in might be willing to do a lease to own kind of deal with the property, because it's water damaged, so it's probably going to be more difficult for him to sell to a regular person, aka a person who's not desperate for a place. I don't say desperate, because, you know, God will provide, but I'd really appreciate having a more permanent place than like an apartment, say. Love to be able to do gardening again. I miss that. Miss having a backyard and a place to garden. Haven't had that since pretty much since I was a kid. We did for a brief time have a mobile home that we were in that had a backyard, and I did some gardening that summer. But I haven't had that in years. Really do miss it. Found a place that's only $57,500, and I say only because compared to the rest of the places available, it's very inexpensive, but getting the money together will be a challenge. So I'm going to check and see. I was doing some research on the guy who owns the place, and maybe I can work out a deal or something. We'll see. Yeah, I am, you know, the worst part, the only really bad part about it, Malachi, is the fact that it's going to be so far away from Mia. That's the part I hate the most. But at the same time, if it puts us in a position to be more of a part of her life in another direction, like, you know, being able to help our son, support her, being able to really just do more, then it's for the best, and I'm okay with that. I do hate that we won't be as close as we were, but that also may, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they would say. So it may prove being for the best. Ultimately, well, I mean, I know God's plans are always for the best, so. But yeah, as much as I'm not overly fond of the idea of moving, there are, you know, there are benefits to it. There are things that we'll be able to do that we can't do right now because we're so involved in Mia's care. It's just, you know, one of those things. Finding the positives in it and getting myself more acclimated to the idea each day. I spent this weekend doing some research into the location, one of the locations anyway, that's up for potentials, and getting a feel for who's who and what the opportunities are, and to get plugged into the community and maybe do something a little more than we've been able to do here. So no, we don't have a place to go. I mean, in the worst case scenario, this is like the plan E of all plans, is that we will drop everything basically and go back to Texas for a short time. Plan B right now is Brandy has a job offer in Morris, Minnesota. So if he accepts that, they will give us a week stay at a motel, hotel type thing there. And then if we don't find a place, we'll just pay a month at a time or a week at a time until we can get the first paycheck in and really find a place. So that's where things are with that. We don't have a solid plan in place for a place to go, but we have several different things on the table. we're not going to end up homeless. It's not like that. We just may be couch surfing for a little while, which is, here or there. We've done it before. Not what we'd prefer, but it's definitely things that we know how to handle. And it wouldn't be the worst in the world. Not ideal, but few things are right now. But I'm grateful that we have built the relationships we have, where it's not a situation where we don't have anyone we could fall back on. That's something that used to be true of our lives. So when things went wrong, we didn't have anywhere to go. We just had to figure it out. That's no longer true about us. It's no longer true about our lives. We definitely have connections and friends who offer places and spaces to land if we need it. We are blessed in that regard. Very much blessed. I was just joking to somebody the other night, and it's not really a joke. It's more of the way it is type thing. Is extreme poverty has like classes too. You've got your absolute lower class, the people who do not have relationships really to speak of. Those are the people sleeping on the streets, and they're on the streets because nobody's willing to take them in, and that might be because they are not pleasant people to be around, or have bad habits like stealing, or have addictions. Those are the people that end up on the streets. And then there's the couch surfers. Those are the middle class of the poverty world. Because they have relationships and friends that'll take them in, but never for very long. But at least they can get a place to sleep and maybe shower every now and then, right? And then you got the people with a vehicle. Those are the upper class of the impoverished class, if you will. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It really, yeah, it's not the most comfortable position we've ever been in, for sure. It was made more complicated. We kind of expected, we didn't quite understand what we were going to be doing when we got here, so we were a little, it made it hard. We had expected, actually, we came here with the expectation that Randy was going to end up with a radio job at the Catholic station that's just up the road from us, but they didn't end up hiring him. And so then we didn't have an income, and then we were taking care of Mia, and that made it hard to get a job. And so things got complicated in a hurry. And I have no regrets whatsoever about the time we've spent developing a relationship with our granddaughter, don't get me wrong. But it did make it more complicated. It did make it a little harder. Because when your schedule is completely unpredictable, as it tends to be when you're taking care of somebody who's 4 and 5 years old and gets sick or has days off of school because of teacher work days, not like regular jobs are willing to let you just let that slide. They want you at regular hours. And then our efforts to build outside income didn't really pan out either. So we were kind of just drifting along on whatever we could get from wherever. It's been a hard couple of years. Definitely been a challenging time. But as I tell people all the time, Most people love the sun and the rain. Or not the sun and the rain. Most people love the sunshine. They are not too keen on the rain. And they hate the dirt, the worms, and the manure. But all of that is necessary for plant growth. So if you got life shoveling manure in your direction faster than you can keep up with it, it's probably because you're being primed to grow. That's the fertilizer. All the stuff that happens that you didn't want to happen. So yeah, we've been struggling for a while. That's during those times of struggle, that's when you build the root system really strong for the next season of growth. And hopefully we've reached that period of growth. I know I'm certainly ready for a change of pace. Oh, I believe it. The Lord always has a plan. It's just whether or not he bothers to tell you his plan or not. Yeah. He doesn't necessarily clue you in until he, as far as he's concerned, his plans are on a need to know basis and you don't always need to know. Which is frustrating, but it probably is done that way because that prevents the enemy from snatching away those plans before they can get implemented. So it might not be the way I prefer for things to be, but God's got a plan and that's all I gotta know. I mean, heck, he didn't even bother to inform Mary, the mother of God, what he was up to, really, beyond asking her if she was willing to cooperate. She's like, yep, sign me up. Whatever you got, big guy, I'm there. I'm kind of trying to follow that same playbook. You don't have to tell me. Just know that I'm there for it. If you need me, I'm there. So, I have no idea what's coming down the pipeline for us. I mean, Randy does have a job offer, so let me state that clearly and plainly. So if he chooses to accept that offer, then we have a definite direction to head. We may not have a place to stay long term, but we do at least know where we'll be heading. And there's that. That's good. Finding our permanent place to stay while we're there is the next thing on the agenda, one giant at a time. And I am working on that. I've also, I found a job in Morris, Minnesota that's for a tourism coordinator position. It's part-time, which would be perfect. It means I can keep running my businesses without really having too much interference from that. And in fact, that position would map with me meeting and coordinating with a lot of people in town. So it's actually beneficial to what I want to do. I don't know if I'll get that, but at least I've put in for it and I've started contacting people within the town and done my research and homework to figure out where I would plug into the community. And we'll see how that goes, you know. Could be all sunshine and roses, could be doesn't pan out at all. Either way, I'm okay. I've still done something useful, which is research and find out what the community is all about, what its most, what its good opportunities are for growth, and who the players are in town. So the minute I get there, I can kind of start plugging myself into the system, making myself part of everything in a way that benefits them and me at the same time. And because we won't have media care duties, I'll be able to devote myself full time to doing that. Being the network girl, get out there, get to know people, look for opportunities to serve the community. And I've already found a bunch of potential opportunities, so I'm pretty happy with that. They don't know my name yet, but before I'm done with them, they're not going to be able to forget it. It's kind of like that with Elko a little bit too. Once we got done, nobody could say they didn't know who we were. I'm really grateful that I had Worldwide Marriage Encounter and Chirp, which was another church group that I belonged to teach me how to really be part of a community, how to show up, how to get connected. Those were such valuable skills that I didn't have when I was growing up and didn't have in my young 20s. My life might have turned out far differently if I had. But I've got no regrets because it was all part of the learning opportunity, and it now means that I can talk to people who may not know how to do those things and guide them and help them find their place in any community, get connected, get plugged in, and make a real difference, no matter where they go. That's something I'd like to do. I could see myself doing well at it. I love the way this castle is turning out. I'm really glad you suggested it. Thank you, Malachi. I think it'll be the perfect addition when we get that. When we get it done and we get the forest put in, I think it's going to be just gorgeous. Definitely no Disney princess castle. But I'm no Disney princess either. Yeah, with the trees, it will definitely look cool. I'm just, this is coming along together so nicely, and I'm really grateful. When you start out work on a piece of art, you never really know how it's going to go, how well it's going to go, whether it's going to go. You're sort of, experimenting and guessing as you go, hoping that things work. They may not, they may. You don't know if it's going to come together or not. So it's nice when it does. No Elsa in this castle. No, this is not frozen enough for her, I'm afraid. She is one cold woman. Ha 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 ha. I really cried the first time I saw that movie. And the reason why is so funny is because it it was almost like they had picked the story of my sister and I. And my older sister hasn't really spoken to me much in years. And she and I were close when I was little, up until I was 4. And then my mother didn't think it was healthy because we're 4 years apart. So she didn't think it was healthy for us to be best friends. And she forced a separation between my sister and I that never healed. It just got worse as the years went by. And no amount of my efforts to bridge the gap have ever really been effective. And I don't really understand why. And I've kept the door open, kept trying to communicate. And she just doesn't seem to be too interested, so try not to force it. But that was what made me cry about that movie, was I saw myself and my sister in it. Can't change the past sometimes, but it doesn't mean the past can't hurt you. I mean, maybe that's part of the worst part of it, is that you can't change the past and you kind of wish you could. But of course, if not for that separation, I will say this. I absolutely idolized my older sister. I would have followed her to the moon and back. I so much wanted to be like her. And I think I ultimately would have ended up being a little clone of hers. And, God has his plan and God has his way. And one of the first lessons I think he taught me through that was you have to learn to stand on your own. You can't be a little clone of somebody else, because if you're going to be a leader, you have to learn to stand apart. And it's a painful lesson, and it's a difficult lesson, and it's not a fun lesson, but it's an important lesson. Every person who's ever going to be in a leadership role has to ultimately learn to stand apart from the people they love most and be able to speak even in the face of somebody they love not approving of them and not supporting them in it. Because it's going to happen. And if you can't stand the fires that come as a result of it, you'll crumble when you're needed most. So, it's kind of like, I feel like maybe God ultimately allowed that separation so that I could become who I am today. Because I wouldn't have been. She's the reason I have so much love for art, actually. She's what inspired my passion for art originally. Now I grew it on my own as I got older, but she is where it started. Families can be so messed up sometimes. Parents do their best, but sometimes their best is so misguided and so messed up that they actually guide you in the wrong direction. You haven't seen Frozen? Yeah, you should. I mean, it's actually a really good movie. It did a really good job of depicting what happens in dysfunctional families. I don't think that was their purpose. I don't think that was their intention. I think it was probably by accident that they did this, but it's actually a really good depiction of how parents isolate each child from the other And then how a young woman who is so hungry for love and for connection becomes easy prey, um, because of that. All it takes is somebody promising to love her, and she's just going to fall right into that, because that's what you're hungry for. That's what you're desperate for when you're not getting it from your family. And so any boy that comes along and promises, I'll love you, well, grabs your heart. You're the middle child out of 5. Actually, that's funny, Malachi, because so am I. I've got 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings. Square in the middle. Now, my older brother is not somebody who grew up with us, because my mother gave him up for adoption when he was born. And so it really didn't feel like for the long time that that was true. But yeah, I'm the middle kid. My baby sister came along when I was 10. And I had absolutely no jealousy with her. You know, some people do, like, the younger kid comes along and bumps you, and but she was my answered prayer baby, so there's no jealousy there at all. I was grateful that she was there. I'd been praying for her since I was little. And I didn't even really, it was so funny. Our family was so messed up, and I really didn't feel that cared about or loved. So I started praying for a little brother or a little sister. I really wasn't picky about the gender. I just wanted somebody to love. Which is funny because I had my little brother, but that wasn't enough for me. It's like, yeah, he doesn't count. Give me somebody new. Your older brother passed away back in 2017. Oh, that's unfortunate. Were you close? Yeah, that had to be hard. I wish I were close with my siblings. My younger brother and I used to be close, but once I reconnected with Christ, he basically told me I'd gone crazy. Uh, and he and his wife, it was never the same. Now, I will say there's some validity to the fact that my brother's wife saw more clearly than I did, really, that there was a very unhealthy dynamic in how my mother operated. I had been so conditioned to accept it that I just basically wrote off her behavior as that's just mom. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s, really, that I was like, wait a minute, that's crazy. I would never accept that behavior from anybody else. Why am I accepting it from her? You know, I would never allow somebody else to do those things. Why am I allowing her to do them? And started really questioning that relationship and pushing back some of it. My brother, because of his wife, had disconnected from my mother much, much earlier. Now, I have not disconnected from my mother completely, but our relationship very definitely changed. I don't give her a free pass like I used to on abusive behavior, and definitely have called her out on it when it's being done, and it's caused a lot of friction between us because she feels like we used to be close. What she doesn't realize is we weren't really close. What it was is that I didn't call her out on what she was doing that was so hurtful. I just accepted it. But at any rate, so my brother and I haven't been close in years, but there was a snafu between my younger sister and all of us 2-3 years ago, I guess. And he felt like I was taking my little sister's side and broke off contact with me completely and hasn't picked it back up. And that hurts like the dickens, but there's nothing I can do to change his opinion of me, or I have tried reaching out and he doesn't really respond. So I keep praying for him. I keep hoping the best for him, but I'm not going to live my life in shambles because he's not willing to connect or whatever. Our family is so messed up. And it hurts because, you know, I really wish there were a way that I could fix it, but I don't have control over what other people choose to do. I just have control over what I choose. Wow. Even your junior high and high school teachers? That is awesome. I don't think, I doubt my junior high or high school teachers would show up to my funeral. I don't even think they know who I am anymore. You know, it's not like, and that's probably on me more than anything. It's not like I've made an effort to keep in touch. I'm not going to blame them. I recognize that about myself. I tend to disconnect rather easily from relationships. Once it's like mentally, even though there's technology that means this doesn't have to happen, mentally, once I've moved, I mentally disconnect, I guess. And that's probably from having moved around so much as a kid that you just, in the day before long distance was cheap and moves just meant you no longer talk to people, you no longer see people, you have to move on. And I think mentally maybe that's where my space is, which is something I probably need to work on. Because this is the internet age and there's no reason to completely disconnect from people just because you move or change jobs or any other thing. You know, it's easier than ever to keep in touch. And I should. Bless you. He was the only one you still spoke with because he wasn't toxic. Yeah, get that. Toxicity. I'm not the kind of person who tends to block anybody from my life. I will continue to connect as long as you are willing to connect. I always want to give people an opportunity to change, a chance to become a better version of themselves than maybe I knew them as. But sometimes it's not going to happen, no matter how much you'd like it to. People sometimes just aren't going to change. And then you have to make a decision about what you're going to do about that. And how you're going to handle it. Now, I always try to keep in mind that Christ doesn't cut me off even when I'm messing up. Although excommunication is a thing for a reason. It's meant to be a wake-up call. It's like, look, you can't just, the relationship between us and Christ isn't on our terms. We don't get to set the terms for it. Christ does. And we get to decide whether we're going to meet him where he wants us to be, or we're going to be our own people. And I guess in families, really, there is that too. Like, there needs to be those limits. Like, you will always be loved, but you are not always welcome if you're going to hurt other people or trample all over them. I don't know. I recognize that I need to do a better job of learning boundaries. I guess that's one of the things you don't learn when there's nobody teaching them to you. Mm-hmm. Still working out what those should be. Figuring out the appropriate ways to set them with family. Especially my mother. Yeah. Water. It is health food. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't. What kind of water? It's the same thing. Potato water. Fermented potato water. You get it. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right, let's take a look at that. How good we've done. And see if we like where it's at. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice looking castle. We got 10 minutes. And then we're going to close this out and switch over to Ubi Stream. Oop. Okay, I'm going to save this and I'm going to come back in. Because once it goes crooked, that's the only way I know to fix it. Yay! The castle is done. Now we can begin working on the rest of the scene. So we've got our trees in the background. Let's work on our path. I like that. That's a good one. Must be something underneath that. Where is that? Huh. It's the only one I've got turned on. Yeah. Is there something else over the top of it that I'm missing? No, that's it. Okay, maybe the smudge isn't big enough? I don't think so. I think that's the problem. It's just not really behaving the way I expected it to. But we'll go ahead and smudge more of that path in. And also want to put some shadows on the side. Trim that down a little bit. Castle is a bit crooked, but you know what? It was falling into disrepair, so we'll just that's our reasoning. That's our excuse, and we're sticking to it, buddy. We're sticking to it. Yeah, I'm liking it too, Malachi. I think it's turning out really nicely. So you got any new videos coming up for yourself? And how's the back coming along? Rehab going okay? A few different videos coming out this week. If it's sideways, just walk like an Egyptian. Yeah, exactly. There you go, Malachi. That's the ultimate solution. Don't bother changing the sidewalk. Just change how you're walking it. Ooh, that's kind of turning out nice. I like the way the detail is looking. I almost wonder what exactly happened to this poor castle. We can make up a story for it as we go. You got to tear down the Fesley Super Strat style guitar. And you might install that dual blade single coil pickup in the bridge position. Nice. Quite a bit fire error than the stock tees, I imagine. Once you add the custom parts, it tends to really change everything from what I understand and have heard. So yeah. Alright, so we've got our road rising up to meet the castle. We'll extend that out a little bit. And that's what we're going to call a Dunners for tonight. Save this as stage 3. Oop, nope, rename that. You gotta be careful with the namings. Put your fingers on the right keys, girl. We'll start adding those things back in, one layer at a time. 13K and the Teesbridge pickup is only 7K. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you spending the time with me because, you know,